I think a lot of like the times, like it's we've already talked about this, but the DAO is like an afterthought. You know, the DAOs are like an NFT project made an NFT and sold a bunch, and then they think about a DAO later. But what if you thought about a DAO before and you already had everything ready for people, like in realms, workable, like spheres already organized, and all you had to do was have people come in, plug and play, and like the ecosystem kind of takes off from there. And you just give them a mission because, like, in reality, like there's not many, like maybe 10% of us on crypto Twitter in general have like a mission when we're like working in the ecosystem. The other 90% here are just I'm not hating on them, it's not a negative thing, but they're just aimless, and that's okay. They're here to just like walk around and try to make a fucking flip. They're NPCs, you know. They're like, I'm gonna make money, like I'm gonna fucking flip my NFT, or I'm gonna make this token.
Right on, right on. And thanks for joining on this. You know, gotta be honest, you really re-energized our focus on DAOs since you came onto the scene. You know, you came back in and you were just like, okay, DAOs, who's talking? What are we doing? You know, and I loved it, man. It was a lot. Like, thank you. I appreciate it.
Dude, you're so welcome, man. I think that's like part of what excites me about this space is we're always like kind of energizing each other on certain shit. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah. And like you've been here for, you know, you're one of the OG space, you know, like, but you weren't always into DAOs. Like, what was it that made that like, okay, this is what I want to like focus on?
It's a great question. I have a group of friends out here. I live in Boulder, Colorado, and I had a group of friends out here that I met long before, like I was Shill Nye or anything like that, and we just been friends for a really long time. But I got a little disconnected with them for a couple years when I did my Shill Nye thing and started traveling for crypto, and then about 2 years ago now, I think it was literally like October November time frame 2 years ago, when the bull run was still popping and everything was still exciting. I came back to Colorado. I relinked up with them, and they're like, "Dude, you got to read what we've been working on for the last 5 years." And they'd been working on what they call the Constitution, also known as the Metacanon, which is like a 45-page document about DAOs, specifically detailing and structuring. It's like almost a legal document for DAOs. Not almost, it is. It's a legal document for DAOs. But they weren't using the term DAO at all. You know, they had just they had seen how like the visionary of the project, CEO Paul, he had seen how there was like a large need for disruptive and decentralized systems within the entire world, you know, and without any technology behind it, they were like looking at it from the perspective of like, if the world's going to survive and like thrive, like humans need to be able to separate into groups and do so without like any like major centralized leadership in those groups, and then work together throughout different parts of the planets rather than having like really centralized like groups of people in different locations with government running them and all this other stuff. And so they spent 5 years ideating around this and building this document that we now call the Metacanon. And when I got back, I read it. I sat down for 2 weeks, read the full 45-page document, and I came back to them and I was like, "You guys are talking about DAOs." And literally the document doesn't even have the word DAO in it. And they're like, "Yeah, that's like essentially what it is in the crypto world. It's called the DAO, you know." And from then on, I just kind of got really inspired by it, and we've had tons of conversations around the fireplace, smoking, chilling, like around how these concepts could like work, and different ideation forms. And I used ChatGPT to like for a couple months to just go back and forth on the document to help me understand it better and to like get some potential real world use cases like inside of it, like the DAO concept of it, to see like how we can kind of progress and move this forward. And that's when you guys saw me starting to talk so much about it, you know what I mean? And that's pretty much, that's the only reason why.
And now, what would like we be able to do, or you know, people watching this, to help take, you know, what's been created by Metacanon, take that document and start, pushing it forward. Like, what are you guys doing right now, and then how can people watching help?
That's a great question. We've played around and toyed with like the actual concepts in physical reality form through like our NFT project, Joe Schmoes, which is our Solana project. We got a good group of people in there, and mostly it's just been like, how do we have conversations around this? Because I think it's it seems to me that as we like you and I, Dean and Taki Soul and all of this in this chat have had conversations on spaces around DAOs and stuff like that. And I think that's like, in my opinion, like the most important step right now is how do we have conversations around it, but also how do we have conversations that move the narrative forward. I think we're in a unique spot with DAOs where a lot of them are just like stuck in their ideation form. They've come up with an idea, they have started to execute on the idea, but eventually like our traditional programming just kind of comes back in, like the centralize around one leader or one group of people, and all of these different things just kind of like the DAO just kind of seems to get stuck. And so that's like where my main interest around it has like kind of lied and landed, is like with Ape DAO, for example. You got a DAO with fucking 50 to 60,000 members, and like you've got like $1 billion in the treasury in Ape token. Like, how do you now create the necessary structures without it just becoming some hierarchical organization or an organization that's just ruled and controlled by token power? And so yeah, that's been my curiosity around it. And I think like moving it forward is just like, it's a slow process, if I'm being honest with you. Like, I don't think it's not like Friend Tech or like SocialFi, where it's like one day you make a platform, then the next day everybody's using it and everybody's excited about DAOs. No, like DAOs require like a different level of like intellectual discussion, and like it requires the gears in your brain to move if you want to be like more than just a participant in the DAO. If you want to be someone who's like actively pushing it, actively growing the narrative, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's been like my main thing around it, is like I'll come in and out of the DAO conversation a little bit. It's a couple, like some weeks you'll see me for like 3 or 4 weeks talking only about DAOs, and then I kind of just like sit back and watch and see what other people take off of like the conversations we've had, see where things are going, and then come back in and have more conversations around it, because it takes me a while to fully wrap my head around all the concepts of this and like how like the potential of it could structure and form, if that makes sense.
I think you're spot on what you're saying. It's about DAOs being a slow process and regarding a lot of intellectual involvement on one's part in order to participate and move the needle forward. And I think that's one of the main reasons that DAOs haven't really picked up in terms of popularity in crypto and Web3 in general, in the same way that, SocialFi, like Friendtech and the lot have. Because, we want the instant gratification, we want the speculation, we want, things are moving really, really fast in crypto. And if you don't see a change day in, day out, you think that people lose interest. And that's not entirely the case. I think DAOs are changing the way that we're collaborating and working together, and that's very important. And it's a slow process, especially at the point that we are right now, where we have a certain set of tools already compared to where we were a few years ago. But right now, I think most of us in the DAO space, deep in the DAO space, are saying that we have the same problem of plutocracy and whales moving around the votes and whatnot, and we've started shifting towards reputation and how we can actually build robust systems that everybody can use and find a common language for that. I think right now, the great brains in the space are doing great work on that, and I'm really, really excited to see what's going to come out in terms of your reputation systems and how we can give more power to the people that actually matter in an organization, in a community. So for me, that's very, very hopeful, and I'm super bullish about that.
Same here, bro. And I think that's like, at least for me, where I see like the major issue that lies in DAOs right now. Like what we're essentially trying to do is we're trying to create a semi-flat organizational structure. I think I think a lot of the times we think it's completely flat. It's not. Like there will always be some hierarchy, but it's how do you like reduce the hierarchy, and how do you reduce the ability for the people who have a little bit more power or a little bit more decision making power to not have full decision making power and not completely rule the DAO, not completely control it and not make decisions for the DAO that like you shouldn't have made because the group of people need to kind of ideate and decide on it. I think my main thing on that point is that at the current like space and time, it seems that we've thought a lot about how do you make it more flat as an organization, like as an organizational structure, but we haven't thought a lot about how can you make it more flat from a like voting and a power like making decision like capabilities, when I see Ape DAO as an example, like have you just get tokens and then you have voting power, and as many tokens as you have, that's the voting power that you have. Like that incentivizes manipulation to a degree, and it almost incentivizes bad actors to participate heavier and to manipulate voting like to their own decision making and their own whims. And so I heard you mention reputation as one of the other factors. That's like one of the things that I've been thinking like very hard about, or have spent a lot of time thinking very hard about, is like how do you create the power dynamic to also be more flat. Just because the organization is flat doesn't mean the power dynamic's flat. And I think that's what DAOs are really looking for, more of like they're not looking like. When we say we're looking for a flat organizational structure, what we're really saying a lot of the times is how do we distribute power evenly, and fairly, that's like the underlying metric that like we're kind of asking more than how do we not have a CEO. We're really asking how do we distribute the power more evenly amongst members of the community. And I think tokens are very interesting. I have a lot of ideas around how you could do that with tokens. I think what you said is very important. Reputation, like I kind of look at it as like token voting power, and then you have contribution. Like how are people, like what are you doing for the DAO? What are you contributing, and how does that like actually affect the DAO? Like are you actively participating? Like participation is not the right word. Are you actively contributing? Are you actively putting in the time and effort to make sure that the proposals that are going through are worthy of the DAO's mission, values, and purpose? Are you actively contributing on after the proposals have been approved? Are you actively contributing to make them better and to actually see them like evolve and help the DAO and make sure that they're actually going through the finish line? And then I think also what you said is super important. Like reputation is like how do other people view your contributions to the DAO? How do other people look at what you're doing, and what do they think about what you're doing? And you're always going to have haters. You're always going to have like some people that are like, he sucks, he's not doing anything. But if you're actively contributing, and if there's like another metric for participation, and these are all things that can be measured and observed and watched, then the reputation, even if you have an 85%, is going to be higher than the other people that aren't contributing and participating, and you can get rewarded more for that. And so, yeah, that's just feeding off of what you were saying there. That's kind of what comes to my mind next, is like, how do we also, beyond just like distributing titles and hierarchy better, how do we distribute power better and like the ability to make effective like decisions within a DAO? One, I think the philosophical side is super important, because like how would people need to know what to build before they build it, and I actually think that's part of the problem on like a lot of the DAO builders right now, is like while we have a basic level of the philosophy, we haven't really like delved deep enough into it for people to build what we need them to build, which is kind of why I talk about it so much. Like I've got all these people that are constantly building DAO tools, and they're great, there's nothing wrong with them, but like how many multi-sigs do you need? How many of this do you need? Like if you already have all that shit built, we get it. But like if we can build out like different conceptual models on how power and voting is distributed, like we were talking about, it's like you have reputation, you have all these different metrics, then like we can send a builder out and be like, yo, go build this for us, so we can just plug and play it. Second, I think right now, like again, we haven't conceptualized them enough. I think the concept of soulbound tokens are beautiful, but also like in the current model of DAOs, which I really wouldn't even fully call a DAO, is like you have an NFT, but a lot of the DAOs makes money because the NFT is actually traded. You know what I mean? So if you have a soulbound token and you can't trade the NFT, then you're cutting a revenue source to the DAO. So it's like it's kind of like a whole thing. Like until the DAO gets to like the revenue generating source independent of the NFT collection, then they're incentivized to not use soulbound tokens right now in the current model. Without the revenue model of the DAO, without it actually creating money and being able to distribute that money throughout the DAO to people that are contributing and participating, why would people contribute and participate? You know, unless you're just completely inspired, like we all of us are, and we have like we just want to conceptualize it and ideate it, and we want to test those concepts and ideations in reality. Like most people who are buying an NFT that's labeled a DAO are just like, cool, I'm here to make money. But without them having potential ways to make money via their contributions and via their participation methods, then like nobody's really going to be inspired to, except for like the creators and the really core members who believe in the actual vision. So I think it's like a multi-set issue. I think a lot of DAOs don't define their vision and their purpose and their like what they're here to do very clearly, and why it's going to make money for the people that contribute, or why it's going to be uplifting, or whatever the value prop of that DAO is. And then without that, you don't have participants. And then without participants, like people just want to trade the shit, so they're not going to really like have a desire to use soulbound tokens. It's kind of like a whole matrix. The way I see it is like DAOs have been in an ideation for forever. You know, like hundreds of years, people have been kind of like thinking and like ideating on how like society could work from a more like Taoist perspective. This is the first time we can actually like ideate on it and then test it with technology because of blockchain. And that's what's like exciting for me about all this shit is like we're kind of like building all of it and like putting like all these concepts throughout history that like we've all learned like into like real model form, and being like without us like having fucking ape DAO, we wouldn't fucking know that like, oh, okay, cool, like we probably shouldn't have token allocations this way, or we probably shouldn't create like invitations into the DAO just because you own one token. Like there has to be different metrics and models to get people incentivized.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges for NFTs, you know, becoming DAOs, because that's where a lot of, you know, if we look at DAO creation, I would say something like, you know, 90% are connected to an NFT, and it's always kind of like an afterthought. Like, you know, you bring up Ape DAO, right? When they made the NFT, they were not thinking about a DAO. That was just an idea that came later with, hey, we've got a token now. What else can we do with a token, and how can we make the token popular? Let's make a DAO. And I think that the big problem you've got is, okay, the people who bought this thing were not thinking about a cause to join, that I'm going to work with other people. So the DNA of the club, the restriction is you have to hold this thing. The DNA of this group is not meant to be a DAO. So I think that one of the biggest problems is that at Genesis, most of these things that become DAOs are already, you know, incapable of making that transition, because most of the people, you know, who minted are trying to do a quick flip, right? I'm hoping I get that rare trait. Oh shit, I didn't get the rare trait. Now I'm, you know, a bag holder. What's the price I can get out of? And then there's a few people who they become such deep bag holders, they start becoming community members. But I think that for this focus on like where we've gone in the conversation, I think that like most DAOs are NFT DAOs. And because Genesis is completely disconnected to cause, and you're inviting in people who happen to be there at this time with money, you know, all of a sudden, like, hey, you're going to be a great DAO member since you didn't get the sombrero. You're going to be a great DAO. No laser eyes for you, but you're going to be a great DAO member.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's like, I think it's a result of like really like two things in one, and it's like not thinking about the DAO or the NFT project as a business. And I think that's kind of like the way that I like to look at DAOs personally, because I have like much more of a business frame. Like you can look at them from like a society frame, and like everybody's got their own little tribe, and now they're fucking living in a village with people, or they're in these like, you know. But I like to look at it from like the business perspective. It's like if you're not thinking about the NFT project or the DAO that comes after the NFT project is live as a viable business, then who wants to participate? You know what I mean? Like, if all of a sudden you create like, let's say you create an NFT project for clothing, and it's a clothing brand. That's just what it is. It's tied to an NFT, you know, and then you create a DAO based off of that NFT. Well, as long as you have a clothing business like that's actually running and thriving, and you're using the mint funds to do what you appropriately said you needed to build this clothing company, then all of a sudden, like you have almost like you have hundreds of roles almost immediately that you can fill. You know, you need a social media manager who's gonna be fucking like posting on Instagram and Twitter and all of this shit 4 times a day to build your clothing company. You probably need an ads manager who knows like a lot about ads on the marketing side. You're going to need a guy on the organizational side of the business who knows all of this shit. Da 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 da. All of a sudden, there's a bunch of roles that can be filled that have active work that need to be done to grow the business, and then the business's revenues and like how much money it's making through NFT sales, as well as the actual like clothing sales or whatever the real life business is, can be fed back to those people, and they can see how their results and their effort are affecting the growth of the actual business. And so I think that's where we're kind of at right now, is like DAOs. The word DAO in like not our definition, but in like general definition means alpha group, you know? And so like that's like the main use case, at least that I see for a quote unquote DAO right now. It's like, yo, join my DAO. It's an alpha group, but like you don't really need a lot of like moving parts in an alpha group. You got 1 or 2 callers, you got the guy that's running the group, you're got a couple mods, you're done. It's complete. And so I think if there was like an actual business model that required like people to have unique skills that would like contribute to the DAO itself, then we'd be in a much more exciting place with them, you know? Because then you have like Joe Schmo from the DAO who bought an NFT, and he's like, yeah, dude, I used to be an organization manager at fucking Popeyes, and I did it for 7 years, like in the corporate realm. And like, I just like to fuck around and have fun with NFTs. Well, now all of a sudden he can make $1,000 or $2,000 a month just coming in the Discord once a day for like 3 hours and just saying, hey, this needs to get done. Hey, did you do this? And he can play his role really well. But until we have actual businesses that are like running and thriving off of the DAO model, then we're kind of just stuck. We're just kind of like, hey, dude, buy my DAO because there's alpha in there. It's like, specifically, I was thinking a lot about Ape DAO, and I was like, okay, cool. Like the major problem I see, right, is obviously it's only token based. You know, if there was a little bit more distribution and tokens didn't have like weight 100% of the voting power, then I would see there probably could be a simple solution there. But then I also thought about it, I was like, you're right. Like what you're saying is 100% right. If I can take, let's just say I make a proposal and I'm like, hey guys, I'm starting a business, and you guys, the Ape DAO is going to donate $2 million to it. And just like write a business proposal in a weekend using ChatGPT, throw it into there. But then I go buy like $14 million worth of Ape token real quick. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, you know, you're voting on the proposal. I vote on my proposal. 7 days are up. I win because I have a large like percentage of the voting power, or I have a large percentage of influence, which are both kind of like weighted pretty heavily. Then all of a sudden, I can just go take the $14 million of Ape token, dump it back on the market, and I got a $2 million donation to a business that I may or may not actually execute. And so there's a lot of problems in there, but the main one that we're talking about is like tokens. So like I was thinking like, and I'm curious what you guys actually think about this idea. Like I was thinking like, what if the tokens were utilized to actually buy voting power instead of having the tokens be the voting power? And so what I mean by that is like, there's like, what if you had to like buy like a 1 of 1 token to voting power, but when you did that, when you quote unquote bought it, your stake within the vote was locked for a period of time. And based upon the results of how the proposal goes, determines how many tokens you can claim or you can get back. So imagine I have $1 million in ApeCoin token, and instead of me using it as voting power, I buy the voting power. So I lock the $1 million in tokens away for 6 to 12 months. Or actually, the way I was thinking about it was actually based on the milestones of the proposal that I'm voting for. So if I'm voting for, let's just say, Ape Water, and I say I think it's a great idea, I'm going to put $1 million like staked behind this, and they have a 6 to 12 month roadmap that they've written in their proposal. Well, based upon how that roadmap gets completed, I'm able to reclaim a certain amount of tokens every 3 months or something like that. But they're still locked. I'm just reclaiming 30% of the proposal's done. I can reclaim 30%. And then at the end of the proposal, based upon whether it actually succeeded and brought value to the DAO, or did the exact opposite, just didn't get the roadmap completed, I'll still be able to claim a good portion of my tokens, but it might only be 90% if the proposal that I'm voted on actually hurt the DAO and lost it money. But if the proposal fucking killed it, and now Ape Water is in fucking Safeway and it's in 7-Eleven and they're making millions of dollars every single month, I actually get a bonus, So after the 12 months, I locked my $1 million, and let's just imagine ApeCoin's stable. It's not, but just imagine, then I can take 1.2 million out because I made a good decision that helped the DAO and was a good active voting participant. I'm curious what you guys think on that. That was kind of where my brain was thinking, how do you solve this issue,
I like the direction you're thinking in, and having there's a dynamic use of the token there, and you're connecting the proposal's ultimate value and outcome, and how good I am at judging proposals to vote on. I think that's an interesting vector. It reminds me of two things that we're looking at lately. One is the new version of Squads that's come out. It's a multi-sig on Solana, very popular multi-sig. You can now choose which people are able to either propose, vote, or execute proposals. So you can't do that with tokens. You do that with addresses as a multi-sig. But you could take that kind of structure and say, look, only people with this many that lock this many tokens can propose. And then you look at the value of the proposal. So, I can imagine a lot of passive voters, because this is still another problem. There are some people who they'll vote on every single proposal, but they have no idea, and they're not contributing. They're not voting. They're not arguing. They're just voting because they know that they're going to get more token allocation if they vote. The best is to apply what you're discussing on the proposal side. So if I've put forward my tokens and propose something, if it passes and it's been good, yeah, I should get something, more voting power. I think that's a great idea. And if it passes and it's been a bad decision, maybe I get lower. I don't know. If it doesn't reach quorum, I shouldn't be impacted, I think. And if it's not passed, maybe I should have less ability to propose moving forward because, I created some spam, But sometimes, I don't love the idea around penalizing someone for trying, but I do like the direction. It also reminds me of Realms now, because we've just added a new capability on the voter stake registry. So there's this plugin that lets you do these cool different unlocking voting mechanisms. And now we've added in the ability for you to set up a structure where if somebody stakes their token, they get a multiplier on that vote. So you can do it times 100. That way you make the non-staked votes less valuable. And you can make it so it either linearly vests, it can vest daily, it can vest monthly, it can vest as a cliff, and people can then take their tokens out. I would love to, on a separate time, take the idea you've got around proposals and see how we could put that into the realms VSR. Like we have to be experimenting. That is the thing we've all come to understand around DAOs is we have to be experimenting. And what you laid out, I think, is a great experiment.
Thanks, bro. Yeah, I would love to do that.
I also love the idea. It's about putting your skin in the game in a very, very practical manner. And not only that, but you know, you tie the effectiveness and the efficacy of what the DAO does and what's being proposed, what's being done to your voice as a governance holder. So yeah, I would be totally up for for trying and finding a formula to apply this and test it out and experiment because we will only know what problematic parts exist that Wales mentions only if we try it out practically, and that would be a very, very fun exercise. And I bet that there is going to be a lot of people that are not going to participate because they don't want that skin in the game. They're there for the ride, like Dean said. They're passive voters. They're voting just for the sake of voting. And to note on that, I'm very much against rewarding governance participation in terms of, hey, you voted, there you go, you're a nice person.
Yeah.
Take some more tokens. No, that's not something I can see myself agreeing anytime soon.
No, I'm in the same boat with that. I mean, they should get participation points, and then maybe after a certain level of points, you get rewarded tokens. But it's not. It shouldn't be like an instant and it shouldn't be weighted the same as fucking someone who's voting and contributing. You know what I mean?
I think one of the great things that we have with SPL governance with Realms is imagine a way that you can get the top contributors, the most active voters and proposers from each DAO across SPL governance and put them in a DAO and invite them to experiment on that. That would be something very, very cool because you basically invite the whole community without affecting its individual community and trying to mess things up with the way they are doing things. So I think that would be a very interesting conversation to get a group of the most active DAO people around and have them in a playground DAO and have there has to be an incentive for sure. But I think that's an interesting dynamic that can apply in other experiments as well. You get the most active people because they're here and they're active for a reason because they're crazy about DAOs such as we are, and you get them to play around and you take them to fuck around and find out what happens. I think that's something that I will definitely be interested to explore.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I would my imagination's like we should center it around like a business or something. I was talking a lot about that earlier, but it's even if we're just like something simple, like we're selling shampoo. We're selling shampoo and like we're gonna this is an experiment. We're creating a shampoo company that's gonna source shampoo from China and sell it in the American markets, and like that's the goal. That's the fucking mission. That's like why we're all coming together. And then we get like the fucking smartest people that we know around DAOs as like the first kind of sphere, the first group of people that are just like, hey, like this is how we need to ideate it. This is how we need to grow it. Here's like the different like places and positions that we need to fill and all of that stuff. And we give that as a template to people, then it becomes fun and participatory, Like I think a lot of like the times like we've already talked about this, but the DAO is like an afterthought. The DAOs are like an NFT project made an NFT and sold a bunch, and then they think about a DAO later. But what if you thought about a DAO before and you already had everything ready for people, like in realms, workable, like spheres already organized, and all you had to do was have people come in, plug and play, and like the ecosystem kind of takes off from there. And you just give them a mission because like in reality, like there's not many, like maybe 10% of us on crypto Twitter in general have like a mission when we're like working in the ecosystem. The other 90% here are just like Like I'm not hating on them. It's not a negative thing, but they're just aimless, and that's okay. They're here to just like walk around and try to make a fucking flip. They're NPCs, you know. They're like, I'm gonna make money. Like I'm gonna fucking flip my NFT or I'm gonna make this token. But it's not that they're like not wanting purpose. They're just lacking purpose. So I think that's where a lot of the things need to come from as well. Is like as a leader of a DAO, whether you're a group of like the first sphere, the people that come around and ideate it, you kind of need to give them purpose or invite them into purpose at least. You know, it's this is where we found like a lot of our struggle with Joe Schmoes, our first realm testing this in physical reality was like without like most of the people in the DAO are fucking awesome. Like I sit around, we have smoke sessions every Wednesday, we chill. It's a great time, but we found a hard time having them fit roles because like we were almost like what I realize now is like we were almost asking them to like create purpose within the DAO. We're like, hey, like come create purpose. But a lot of people aren't driven that way and want to create purpose. They want to just like make a good like $1,000 extra a month by participating a couple times a week. They want to like flip their JPEGs. They want to go back to their wife and and they want to watch Netflix. That's what they want to do. So it's almost that you like when structuring the DAO itself, you almost need to give like purpose to the people that are participating and be like, hey guys, like we need a social media manager. Like we need this, we need that. Like who can fit these roles and who can do it effectively, and then have people vote on that. And I think there needs to be like some base incentives from the beginning as well, you know? Like that was another big like kind of ties into what you're talking about, but that was another big issue that we saw is like unless you have some sort of incentive for people to dive in and like earn as like for say the social media manager, then like yeah, it seems like there aren't a lot of people that are very capable or desiring to like actively participate. But at least in the vision that I see, the potential vision is like when there's like enough capital flowing through each ecosystem of a DAO, like for me, like I'm good at social media. So like what if like I'm the social media manager in 6 different DAOs? You know, it wouldn't be hard for me to actually make fucking 15K a month doing that, you know? Like 3K each a DAO, you know, whatever it is. Like if the DAO's making enough money and all the other like parts are in there, I think there's going to be more people that are like wanting to actively participate. I think right now for me, when I look at like DAOs that I've participated in or like tried to create, it's like there's capable people that just don't have direction on how to be capable. There's smart individuals who know that like if like who I know that if I just said, yo, you, like you're really good at this, just focus on that and just do it, he would kill it every single second, and if he was rewarded for killing it, he'd kill it even harder. But I can't like do that as the DAO either. I can't tell people what to do. So it's like it's almost like my question, and I don't have the answer for it, but it's like how do you like properly invite people in to show them that they're capable and to show them that their participations matter? Because I also think like when fucking Joe Schmo in the Discord, who has, even if he has 2,000 Twitter followers or 1,000 Twitter followers, like that's still like good enough to understand how social metrics work and good enough to like start to put content out and participate. It's just how do you get him to see that, and how do you like inspire him enough to be like, yeah, I want to participate in that. And my final point is like how do you show them like that their contribution to it is like actually effective and actually like working? Because like for me personally, in our businesses, like I get obviously excited when we make money, but I get more excited when I see the progression of our business moving forward, you know, as a whole. Like when I see that I participated here and it made a difference, and now everybody is better because of my participation, or he participated and everybody's better because of his participation, like that excites me the most. And I think it excites a lot of people unconsciously the most. They're like, when you're in a business and you're working on something and you're building it, it's really fucking cool to see it evolve and take it to the next level. And I think that would be like more of a unifying factor of a DAO, because a lot of the times it's like very, like it's challenging to like participate in something and then not see it go anywhere. Like, unless you are the creator of it and you are dead, you're like, I'm doing this till I die. I want to make this successful, like most entrepreneurial people are. Like, if you're just like joining some company or joining some venture or joining some DAO and you're doing a couple things here and there, but it's not going anywhere in your vision, it's like not the most exciting. So I think like there's almost like like personal things that need to be connected more as well in a DAO to make people feel like, yo, when I join this, like I feel like I'm a part of a family, or I feel like I'm a part of a squad or a crew. And that's like we've talked about a lot of the negatives of NFTs, but I think that's like the positive side of the NFT potential with the DAO is like people already feel like they're part of a family when they fucking buy a cat or when they buy a Solana monkey business. But like, how do you get them from that point to being inspired enough inside of the group to like participate and watch their participations change and evolve the structure?
I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of contributors coming in, not being a core founder or something. Come in, you do your stuff, you do some good for the community. You get maybe some small reward, or what you're doing it doesn't turn out well or what you hope to, and then you disappear. We see that happening in communities all the time. I think that part of the reason, I think, and what I can infer in my experience in the space so far, is that people don't have not discovered yet, or at least a big amount of people and users have not been convinced yet that there's so much great potential in what we're doing in decentralized communities, in Web3, in crypto. It takes a lot of conviction to withstand like how many years of bear market we have right now and still keep at it. Because it's not a coincidence that many say that it's a marathon, not a sprint, and you have to just survive and stay in the game. So in a micro scale, that's what we're seeing with people in communities, that they come in, they try something out, doesn't work out, and then they leave. So maybe we need to do better in educating them, in showing them what's possible. And I think it's much more than a monetary issue. It's about, like you said, understanding the person behind the Discord handle and what makes them tick. Because for sure, all of us have something that make us tick, and discover that as fast as possible, and play onto that and try to get them to see how powerful it is when you have a team of people, um, uh, rallying up together towards some goal, or a set of goals and milestones. I think that's so powerful that many people who have never experienced that. There's a thing in sports. If you played sports, especially in team sports, when you participate in a team and you see a great, good effort succeed, there are few feelings in the world that don't compare to this. When you see a squad, your team, the people that you have led, and do something good and achieve something, that motivates you to do it 1,000 times more. So we need to find ways to show that to people and allow them to experience that, at least, so that they can understand that we're here for something much more important, and along with the compensation and the rewards and whatnot.
100%. Yeah, I mean, in the vision that I see, it's like some people are gonna want to be there every fucking second, you know. And then there's also some people that like you don't need there every second, but as long as they're like dedicated and motivated enough, like they can fucking do exactly what they need to do, you know? Like you don't need the social media manager to be so inspired by what you're creating, but you need him to be competent and you need him to know like strategy and you need him to do his fucking job, you know? So that guy could go work in fucking 8 different DAOs and he could make $1,000 a DAO and he could have all of his fucking rent paid, and all he's doing for 4 hours, 5 hours a day is making social media posts and building strategy. He'd have his own agency where his clients are all just DAOs, you know? But then you got the operations manager or the fucking head of governance. Like that guy needs to be focused on like that specific DAO, and maybe he's earning more every month because his roles, so there's so much attention and time and effort put into what he does. Um, but he needs to be focused on one DAO, and he needs to be inspired by the actual mission of the DAO. Otherwise, he's just not going to participate. just tying our conversation in, that could be like another thing we like have discussions about, you know, is like how do you actually create the right filtering process, you know, where you understand like what roles need like certain levels of like inspiration and passion, and what roles are like more passive roles that are active but passive to a degree in terms of like desire to always be there. It's a big question. I think that like there's so many different fucking parts to it. That's what excites me about it. That's what I was trying to like get to, is like we could just test and play with things. And there's no wrong answer. That's like the fun part about it, you know what I mean? Like nobody has the answer, you know? That's what I like about this realm a lot, is like if you're doing any sort of other business and you're doing fucking internet marketing or anything like that, you can just follow fucking guidelines and spreadsheets of other people that have done it successfully. We're kind of like at the forefront of an entirely new concept that really, honestly, in my opinion, has the potential to change like the world. Like it can change governance structures, it could change financial structures, it could just change like the traditional home structure and like how people are living and how people are connected inside of communities. It can change fucking crypto's world, it can change all this shit. And we're like sitting here at the forefront just poking different like bubbles as we go along. We're like, does this work? Is this right? Oh, that's cool. Like let's like save that for later. Oh, maybe that goes here, you know? That's what I love about these talks. I appreciate you guys having me on. This is fun.
I want to ask before we wrap it up. Will we see you in Athens DAO this December? We're having Athens DAO, our hacker house of sorts, solely for DAOs for a second year in a row, and we'd love you to join us.
If you come to Greece, if you come to Athens DAO, you have to speak. That
for sure. Yeah,
I would love
like,
to.
Mandatory.
To have you up there, man, would be insane.
Dude, I would be honored to come out. Yeah, you let me know when it is, and I can start to like figure out details and stuff. But that would be a blast. I've never been to Athens and would love to come. Let's fucking go.